Right. So thank you very much, and good morning to you all. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to share something that is I'm passionate about these days and working a lot on this. We'll start with some news articles. These articles appeared sometimes back when tools like user tools like ChatGPT, which is connected to generative AI, came into picture in November 2022. So this was from CNET. So the article goes as New York City schools ban ChatGPT amid cheating worries. And if you take a few more, New York Times, New York Post, mostly from US, Harvard Independent, specifically says ChatGPT and the death of education. So we are into this generative AI tools like ChatGPT or user tools like ChatGPT. It's a chatbot connected to large language models or generative AI tools. Come into picture, there are a lot of concerns about education, and to the extent Harvard Independent talking about no more education in the current form, that is actually. So I'm going to spend some time talking about generative AI in education, the opportunities with the generative AI. Opportunities come from obviously the gap we earlier had, and therefore the new opportunities. And with the opportunities, whenever new tools, technologies are introduced, there are also challenges. So we'll also look at the challenges that we'll face or we are facing, and how those challenges, some of these challenges can also be addressed in the context of generative AI and the education sector. So this is the outline for my talk. The next 50 minutes or so, I'll talk about, I'll give you a quick introduction on the generative AI and education and how these two things can marry together and how they are together. And then specifically on opportunities and challenges, and I spend most of my time on opportunities and challenges. So just to start with, this is for those who are not part of the general computing sector. Yeah. So artificial intelligence is a reasonably matured field by now, and generative AI is coming as a new sub-discipline under artificial intelligence, overarching between AI and also data sciences. So as generative AI was possible, or use AI to generate content is made possible through various aspects, like one is data, big data, the other one is machine learning, which went into sub areas like deep learning. So GenAI is utilizing large language models. So where we have a large number of nodes or items connected together to generate new material or media. So just to take a step back, like I said, AI is not anything very new. Starting from World War II, AI is into the picture, and there were things like the Alan Turing, who started working on AI those days, has even devised what is known as the Turing test to check whether a machine is having intelligence. Since then, the term AI was coined. From there, the first chatbot was released in 1964, way before even the internet. And since then, a lot of things have happened. And now we are in the era of this revolutionary tool like ChatGPT, which is coming from the GPT model and LLM in the era of generative AI, things that can generate content. So what is GenAI doing? It can take prompt, as we call it, or an input, and produce output in the form of text or in any other forms like images. And if you have images, you can do videos. If you can generate like signals, images type things, you also can make others like music, sound, voice, and so on. Right? So it's systems, computers generating content. That is what we are talking about. Give some example. So there are tools like ChatGPT, very popular for text generation, but there are many others. And there are tools for audio, images, video. As you know, like this keeps on expanding, and new tools and ideas are coming out of this. And also one other place is code generation, where you can ask AI to make programs or software programs. Just to, before we go into the details and looking at the opportunities and challenges, I just want to highlight in terms of intelligence, or one of the measures that we can use to measure intelligence is performance. So compared to human performance, where AI-related tools performances are, right? So it's not specifically about generative AI, but AI. So as you can see, each curve here, let me take, each curve here is pointing to a particular application and its growth compared to human performance, right? So the very first one is handwriting recognition, which is one of the things that we were working on for a long time. In fact, like from 1998, according to this timeline. And over time, it has improved. Like, so somewhere in 2000, we have reached about 80%. But by now, not now, even earlier, like about 8 years ago, or 6 years ago, we have gone about 100%, meaning we can use AI tool to do handwriting recognition better than how humans can do, or how human can do. Others like image recognition, speech recognition, all of them have passed 100% human performance in the past. Like, so this is the timeline up to 2022 and so on. But we are also now into things like reading comprehension, understanding languages. These are also has happened, and they are well past again human best performance, like 100%. There are areas where we are still not 100%, say things like common sense completion, say when you have a sentence to be written or some work to be done, artifact to be done, can an AI tool do it as good as human? It's already reaching about 100, it's already reached about 100%. But at the same time, others like code generation by 2023 and so on, passing 2022, it's reaching about 80% and some 90%, like maths, which is like high-end maths, grad school maths, it's 90%, code generation somewhere closer. So because when it comes to comparing how good AI tools and technologies can do, the comparison is not about how best we can do as a system, but how good these tools can do better than the human's performance. So from a performance perspective, that is just one way of measuring how good these things are. Performance is not the only way. They are above, or in many areas above human, and some area they are reaching. Actually, these numbers are a bit older, and by now some of these things have reached some similar numbers and high. This is just for a comparison and to understand that this is something serious that we had to talk about. So with that in mind, what are the opportunities we have in education where we can apply generative AI? So to talk about opportunities, let me take a step back and think about a different situation, not specifically in education, but here it's cinema. right? So let's assume, as you know, like over years, AI is helping cinema, movies in a lot of different ways. One such situation is predicting, say for instance, as you know, if you have a Netflix account, for instance, now, not now, for the last several years, the Netflix tools, the AI that is in it, can predict the movie that you like. Not just Netflix, as this is the movie domain, but in any other place, like products. As you know, like if you go and do a search, then the relevant advertising, all that works through predicting what you want. So we are using AI in that domain for a very long time. So with that, we not just domains like sales or movies, but also in education, we were able to use the AI in education for predictive requirements, right? Or things like, for example, how difficult an adaptive online exam should be. How do we set it differently? How do we make it customized to a certain person's need and so on? However, things are taking a bigger turn when it comes to the use of generative AI. So with generative AI, we can take even a further step. It's no longer about just identifying what an individual needs and then matching it with what is already prepared and kept, right? So if it comes to, when it comes to movies, there are 100 movies or 1,000 movies, and I want to watch a movie based on what I already watched. It's going to give me, okay, so these 5 movies are the top 5 that you like. So these movies are already there, they're already generated, and we can use this predictive AI to give me, okay, this is the best one, good for you, like you will like it, based on my previous list and also based on my ratings and reviews and so on. But generative AI can take this a step further, right? So what it can do is it can keep these movies floating, meaning it can have ways of generating these movies as and when you like. Let's say you started watching a movie, depends on your mood, depends on how you react to these movies. By observing your reaction through various other AI techniques and sensors and all that, and vision. Now, generative AI can make my movie the way I want, on the go. Right? So can I make, so the movie experience that I have, not just the storytelling, but also the sound, the voice, who are the actors, what's going to happen to different actors, all these can be generated on the go. So think about a movie experience like that. I'm just taking movie as an example, but can we bring such an experience, a very much personalized experience, into education? Right? So it's no longer we have a set of material, set of learning tools, and then we pick a few, but we are going to use techniques like generative AI to generate new ways, new techniques, or new material on the go for learners, right? So that's the comparison we can make between this movie example. So with that in mind, and what we have been talking about in the education sector about the 21st century learner in the turn of the last century, we identified a number of skills, starting from the core literacy, numeracy, on top of it other skills, and then on top of it, like, so these critical thinking and so on top of it, the subject specialties and so on. So this is like the typical 21st century learner skills. However, something that we didn't specifically focus on in this is how things like AI, and specifically now like generative AI, can come in and be part of it. So with that in mind, latest update to this 21st century learner skills is AI literacy, right? So like it was already mentioned at the introduction as well. So now that AI is going to be part in a very serious sense in terms of learner experience, what all of us as educators have to also consider is how to integrate AI literacy as part of the 21st century skill. right? So every learner, that is, obviously teachers are also can be considered. Teachers can also be considered learners. So every learner has to have the AI literacy so that they understand what's going on, the limitation, the ethical aspects, and various other aspects. Some of them I'm going to discuss today. That's the very first starting point. So we have to change our overall landscape of learning or learners. So with that in mind, this is something that UNESCO came up with recently. Not when I say recently, within the last couple of years. The latest AI-related UNESCO, as you know, is working on education. Their policy is related. One of the aspects they are mentioning is learning to live in the time of AI. Something that they have highlighted is to go from this the three pillars of education usually are reading, writing, and arithmetic. From there to emphasize on empathy, creativity, and critical thinking. As you can see, we bringing empathy to the beginning and also giving lower importance to reading, writing, and arithmetic, and then having creativity and critical thinking. These aspects, according to UNESCO, are expected to be from the lowest, like school curricula. If you think, okay, so these things in fact are like already in our program outcomes of most of the programs that like bachelor's levels program and beyond, but UNESCO is talking about bringing this to the lowest level, like from the school, so that they become the pillars. So with that set, like, okay, so now we have the UNESCO's understanding and the 21st century learner skills and AI being part of it. Why something like that is useful? Like where we can find the opportunities to use AI to make things better. So one that is very close to me, and I'm trying for a while on this aspect, is related to learning. So can everybody learn? Is the question I'm asking. Obviously, the answer is, I'm going to say is yes. So, but how we, I'm taking this idea, in fact, like from one of the articles from Prof. 𝗚𝗽𝗻𝗁. He was a physics professor in UK. And he was talking about this concept called everyone should get an A. The idea being, given time, anyone can learn. The time is, so if you can look at these two graphs, you can see in traditional education system, what you're really doing is the learners are starting at different command of material levels, and they have different learning rates. So this person is having a faster learning rate, while this one is at a slower learning rate. How much time someone take to command of material, get command of material. So from there, if you give enough time, so obviously, and also at the same time, we are stopping everyone at the same time in a typical learning setup, like a university semester course. If you give enough time, all of them can achieve the 100%. So obviously, this is not very practical for multiple reasons, including when you want to have administrative processes and things like having multiple students in a class and so on. It's not easy to have this flexible timing in running the systems. So therefore, there are challenges, but it's possible. On the other hand, something else I'm taking from a very old study, 1984, from the famous Benjamin Bloom, the one who we are attributing the Bloom's taxonomy to. So the study, in fact, goes as 2 sigma study or 2 sigma problem. What it says is the average student who receives one-to-one personalized instruction. So if you can teach, or if you can give students one-to-one attention, the student performance can be improved by 2 sigma. What is 2 sigma? Coming from the normal distribution. So 2 sigma is, that's 1, 2, like 2 sigma is student performance increasing, improving like this. Just to give you a more closer number-based perspective, if you have a class of 100 students, and if if you give one-to-one tutoring those students, 90 students out of 100 will achieve better performance than the average student in the previous class, right? So 50 will become 90, right? So and also there's, if you only, so that this also compare, I'm also comparing another concept which is not one-to-one tutoring, but what is known as mastery learning, which I in fact didn't highlight earlier, but the concept here is everyone finishing, meaning everyone becoming master of the material. So it's also the term coined there is mastery learning. That again was tried way back, very long back actually, in 1900s, and proven to be working. So these, so these concepts show that it's possible if you give enough attention to, or if you give enough time and attention to learners, it's possible to bring bring their learning better and make them all learn, and which is also known as the personalized education. Right, so the personalized education is similar to the concept I brought in earlier about the cinema experience. Can the learners be like the recipients they are, getting individual attention? So why individual attention is useful is obviously for those reasons. Some work has already been done or keep happening in this domain. One of the like sort of leaders in this aspect is companies like Khan Academy, who is doing a MOOC platform, as you might know, and they are mostly focusing on schools, but also others. So here is the Khan Academy, as you might already know, have developed what is known as 𝗘𝗍𝗂𝗰𝗁𝗁, which is AI-powered chatbot. When I say AI, I'm talking about GenAI here specifically. Chatbot that has a limited scope, and it works with the students and give learning experience to the students personalized. Right, so it's not the complete solution that I'm talking about, but it is part of the solution that we can work on. So with this, it's not only the students or the learners, but also teachers or the facilitators who can use these platforms or the GenAI tools to improve their productivity and also their experience and their time for students. So this support is available for both students and teachers 24/7. I don't have to tell you that. Just to extend on the teacher's perspective, there is more, right? So this is a study done by McKinsey in the US. In the US, and out of about 50 hours, the teachers, these are school teachers, spend on work, the teacher work in hours per week. These are the average number of hours spent on various activities, starting from preparation, about 10 hours, and evaluation and feedback, where the student is involved, 6 hours, professional development of teachers, 3, administration, 5, proper student engagement, not in the evaluation aspect, but also instruction and engagement, like engaging with them about 16 hours, these are school teachers. Other aspects, student behavioral, social, and other emotional skill development, that is about 3.5 hours, and coaching and advice about 4.5 hours. This is the time that is normally spent by teachers on average, a typical teacher. But what the study goes in to find is that how we can spend or reallocate this time into about 49% of this time to, like right now about 49% of this time is the one that is used for direct interaction with students, and the rest are for others, right? So more personalized. Earlier I was talking about how these tools can help students get personalized experience through the tool, things like chatbot. But at the same time, if we can reallocate teach hours according to this, and give teachers access to these tools, and use let teachers to use these tools to do or make their life more productive, work life more productive, it is possible to tap onto the teacher's time. As of now, only about 49% of the teacher's time. This is like school teachers. I believe it is even lower for university teachers. So we can use this time, tap onto the time to have more student engagement, give the students better learning experience and personalized experience, and the one-to-one learning experience. So here the same study goes on to identify the different type of work the teachers do and how the reallocation can be done. So usual working time, how much of the time can be given for taken or by using GenAI type or AI type tools, how the teachers can give that time back to the student engagement. So how much time we can give back is mentioned here. So certain aspects which are already 100%, so you don't have to give anything back where they are, like, and so on. So overall, that the study finds about 20 to 30% more. The time can be given for students. So instead of 49%, it can go up to 79. So more time the teachers, in addition to the tools giving personal experience to students, personalized learning experience to students, the teachers can also spend more time with students, adding more value to the learning experience, and obviously the student learned, the learners learn. That is one aspect. The other aspect is learning itself is not the way how we do teaching learning is not universal. Right? So the universal design for learning principles highlight that learning is not done in the same way. Learners are different, and therefore the UDL guideline specifies learning or the learning experience has to be given in different ways to different learners, and different type of material has to be prepared for different learners, different type of assessment has to be done, different ways of the process has to be different for different learners. Right? So the UDL talks about it a lot, and the process is well, it's a framework that is well developed. The challenge again is whether the teachers and those content creators have enough time to work on all these different aspects depend on the learner they are focusing on. Say in a class of 30 students, different students are going to have different requirements, and therefore all these different type of options has to be given to the learners. But that's not possible with the current situation, where the teachers spend a lot of time on other activities, other in the sense related activities, where the learning engagement is lower, and also there's not enough time. So as you would remember, only about 10 hours out of the 50 hours is spent on preparation. That is not enough to give all different aspects of or target or give opportunities for all different learners. So universal design for learning, it emphasizes it, but it's not practical, particularly in resource constrained environment like here, like in Sri Lanka. So, but with these tools reallocating time, we can improve productivity of teachers, and therefore it's possible, we argue, that we can give more time. We give more time for things like UDL, right? So where the teachers can spend time with, again, the use of tools, and also the tools can help better because they are now generative. Obviously, the human has to be somewhere in the middle, but with the tools, with such tools, it's possible to do so. Right? So with that, it's possible to have better engagement with the automatic content generation, enhancing, so in terms of productivity, where we can identify these aspects and improve them. Not just that, with the support of these tools, it's also possible to do data-driven insights. So it's very possible and also becoming very easy to do visualization in the learning context, understanding the learners, understanding the learning style of the learners, understanding their learning experience. All that can be done faster with data that is collected from these from the learning platforms through the learning through the AI related tools. So it's all possible there. Something else or something more that you can do with these tools is creativity, right? So for example, I like to be a good musician, for instance, but I'm not good at it, right? So why I'm not good at it? One, I didn't put enough time and effort in my from my childhood on training myself onto this. Now that with the tools coming in and helping improve our creativity, meaning, say, let's say I have an idea to make a small movie and or a small image or something else that is considered creative. With my ideas, can I use these tools to do various aspects, starting from ideation and brainstorming, and also into creating the content itself, creating the video itself. If I give the proper prompt, if I can articulate what I want to do, that because I'm interested, I will be able to do it. Although I can't really draw, I can say how my drawing should look like. So that again help the learning aspect, preparing the proper material and so on. So on the same line, a company like OpenAI has their own take on how teachers can use AI, particularly ChatGPT, because OpenAI is promoting ChatGPT. That's coming from the OpenAI's website. So they are giving examples, and in fact, they are also giving prompts, example prompts on how you can use OpenAI's tool for doing things like building quizzes, tests, and lesson plans, and other examples like role. So, you know, like these tools can be used for things like tools like ChatGPT can be used for different ways of learning. Remember UDL, where you have different ways of material, different ways of learning processes, and so on. For instance, role playing, you can use a tool like ChatGPT for role playing, both as a teacher, as a student, for teachers, and so on. Right, so all that are possible. And language, as you would imagine, the language limitations can also be alleviated to some extent using these tools. And make students to use these tools appropriately, or the learners to use these tools appropriately, so that they become critical thinkers even better. Meaning the tools, we can make the tools to challenge the way how they think and understand and identify their learning and thinking styles and patterns. That's coming from OpenAI. So just to give you one example on how effective prompting can be. This itself is a larger topic. We can discuss a lot more. There are different ways of doing prompting. And here is just a simple example. There are enough different models. So this example goes into 4 aspects: context, task, instructions, clarify, basically refinement. Right, so you can see like a prompt can go like, you first bring the context, where you also say what is expected from the tool or what is expected from the model. You are an educational expert who specializes in a certain field, teaching a specific level of students, undergraduate course in the field. So things like that, when you say this, and the model narrows it down to a certain context and brings the right response from within the context. So create a lesson plan. So this example is for creating a lesson plan without the field being filled. 60 minutes on the topic, a specific topic we can give. The lesson plan must cater to higher order thinking skills. So we can also even specify the level of level of skills or level of the learning order into the prompt. And also we can include things like the UDL principle I mentioned earlier, the UDL framework, so that it can propose, the tool can propose solutions in multiple fronts or multiple type of material. So things like that are easily possible. So there's a lot of opportunities, but obviously there are also challenges that comes with the opportunity when you adapt technology into anything, including education, right? So starting from things like academic fairness. So academic fairness comes from aspects like, can all the learners have access to or equal access to these tools, or equal access to digital platforms, technology, which is not usually true. due to socio-economic factors and also, socio-economic factors of different levels at the student level, at the country, at university, schools, and various aspects, right? So region and so on. So all those are challenges, right? And in addition to the access, we also, due to the previous access, their experience, their literacy are not the same, digital literacy are not the same, and therefore there's a divide. So therefore, some students who are well exposed to these technologies are better off compared to others. So that's the fairness we're talking about. So with these, so that's one of the challenges that we have to take care of and address, and the payment related to it. And more other challenges. One other challenge is over-reliance. So over-reliance is very common in any new technology. So when a new technology is introduced, not any learner of the technology, either being teacher or students, they all start or go through this Dunning-Krugger effect. What basically the effect says is you start thinking the confidence in using the tool at 100%. Because when you see it, you see, okay, wow, it's really good. It can do, looks like it can do a lot of things. It does something that the one who is experienced in thinking the tool can't do in the past. So something like generating text is not possible by tools prior to things like the GPT model. So right, when it started happening, it starts somewhere here. This is just an example for the GenAI tool, but specifically, actually, this is for ChatGPT. Just took this from somewhere, and then that's common for any GenAI tool or any technology. And then after a while, you realize, okay, no, these tools have limitation, and therefore it can do only certain amount of things. So the level of confidence level in the tool comes down because you realize it can't do everything that I want. Looks like it's not what I want. But then over time you learn and you adapt, and you come to a stage where we are reasonably confident that this tool can be used for various other things. So what this as a challenge, what I'm trying to highlight is that over-reliance is going to be a challenge among learners. At the same time, we cannot overcome this challenge unless we expose the tools to the learners, so that they get exposed and they go through the curve and they end up in a place where they are ready, and therefore they can use it. So obviously, this challenge come through various topics, things like the tools lack in logical reasoning, the tools has errors due to the information from where they are trained, they have outdated and biased data, outdated because not every latest information is used in the tool to train, the model to train, biased because the data that is put in for training are not coming from all the different spheres of the regional, socio-economic, also different type of aspects. Say, for example, a country like Sri Lanka has very limited amount of data that is in public domain in the language that the tool is more familiar with and uses to learn, and therefore it's not going to produce proper, or it's going to produce biased output. But these other concerns are things like if the learners rely on the tool overly, more than what is expected, then they might also lose some of the skills that they are expected to learn as learners. So these are the risk of over-reliance. So, and obviously, like I said, to overcome these, we have to expose them and make the learners understand the challenges and therefore or limitations basically, and therefore make them understand how these tools can be used the best. Other concerns include data privacy in multiple forms, from like using our data, the data that we have, private, personal, and also institutional, and so on. When you start using this, it's going to be part of the model in most cases, and often not, particularly in situations where you don't have a subscription, or we don't have subscription for these tools, where the data that is, the tool that is private freely available, will mostly use the data that you share or you use with the tool, in terms of prompts, in terms of context, all that. So that's a problem. So we have to worry about, and also we also have to worry about the data that the tool already has, and there are already a number of cases on this aspect, things like what the Times did, and New York Times did, and also Wall Street. Sorry, this is not Wall Street. This is like an article coming from Wall Street, but this is from the Google's one in France, the recent verdict that was delivered. So these are all related to privacy issues, and these are the highest level where the model is trained with large amount of data from certain entities or companies, and they coming against the model or those who are training the model. But at the same time, on an individual level or institutional level, we also have to be concerned about our data being shared, whether they are shareable and so on. Specifically from an academic perspective, one of the main challenges is plagiarism, right? So, meaning can the way how plagiarism is defined already, as you know, the tool is anything that you take from somebody else's copyrighted content is plagiarism, right? Plagiarism is a practice of taking someone else's highlighted highlight work or ideas and passing them off as our own, right? So particularly plagiarism talks about work more than ideas, but idea, when it is written down, then it is copyrighted to a certain person, and then taking it from there is plagiarism. However, now we are in a sort of a more complex situation, one being the content that is generated is from a tool, not from a person. However, as you might already know, there are plagiarism detection software that does detect things that are generated by tools like GenAI tools like ChatGPT, right? So that is now the tools doing. However, the tools that are doing this detection, plagiarism detection, have their own challenges as well. So, you know, like when it comes to detecting plagiarism in terms of whether a content is generated by generative AI or a large language model, then we are in a race. So the large language models and the tools that are built around them are expected to make the output as good as human-like, right? So we are trying to make them as good as human-like. On the other hand, the tools that are trying to do the plagiarism detection is trying to do the opposite. I mean, not the opposite in the sense trying to detect whether this text is generated by human or not. So therefore, there's a challenge. They are like on a race, right? So the better one tool does, the other tool is going to fail, and therefore they have to improve it. So it's not a new phenomenon. This has happened in the past in various other aspects, things like again AI, like things like all these tools that go and does filling forms and so on, like, you know, like we have things like CAPTCHA and reCAPTCHA and so on, which are doing something similar. So here in GenAI and plagiarism detection, the challenges are not just about this competition between the race between the two type of tools, but also there are others, right? That is why I'm calling it more complex. So which is about how reliable the AI detectors are. In fact, as of now, according to 𝗚𝗽𝗽𝗀𝗃𝐺, the reliability is mentioned as a score here. So just to take some context and examples to show how complex the situation is, here is a study that was done in US recently among a few tools the two graphs you are seeing here is one So first graph is human written misclassified as AI written, right? So here, so human written content is classified as AI written. First one, the red color one, is real TOEFL essays, and second, the gray color one is real US 8th grade essays, right? So one is when it says TOEFL essays, it's written by non-native English speakers, right? And other one is written by native US 8th graders who wrote essays for TOEFL essays. Right? So what you see here is the red color one. Both of them are written by real people, but one by non-native speakers, the other one by native speakers. So the one that is written by non-native speakers, as you can see, are identified as a lot AI generated. Right? So the percentage here is identifying as AI generated. For example, Originality.ai identifies real TOEFL essays written by non-native authors 76% of the time as AI generated. But at the same time, the same tool identifies the text written by 8th grade US kids who are native speakers as just 1%. So you can see the problem in tools like Originality.ai, which is detecting plagiarism, supposed to be. Even when it says plagiarism, we are just talking about whether it's AI generated or not whether it's copied from another person. Right, so as you can see, there is a problem here. There's a big challenge when it comes to non-native speakers, and it's going to be harder for countries like us. So on the other hand, there's also a challenge with the same tools. So this is again, in this situation, this is second graph is about the abstracts that are generated by something like ChatGPT. And the second version of it is the gray color one, is the same ChatGPT is used to refine the prompt is refined and regenerated text, saying things like make the text more like human-like and so on, right? So adding more to the prompt and making them refined. So with the refinement, you can see again, when ChatGPT 3.5 type tools are used to generate abstracts, so the tools like Originality.ai identifying it as about 60% AI generated, but when you refine it, the numbers come down to half. So again, another challenge where the text is generated by AI, but the AI detection tools are identifying as not, or at least reducing the count by just refining the prompt that is given. So that is, like I said, a race, and also there are challenges on both ends. Right? So how do we overcome these challenges? Things like plagiarism related. One, what we had to worry about is to decide what plagiarism is. Like I said at the very beginning of this plagiarism topic, it is about whether we take something from somebody else's. So these tools being not someone else, can we consider these tools as, or copying things from these tools as not plagiarism, right? So can we redefine plagiarism and distinguishing between unauthorized use of innovative integration of AI-generated content? So can we differentiate between like copying from another person's idea, another person's text, copyrighted material to what is generated from AI? In fact, research, which is not part of today's topic, takes a lead on this redefining plagiarism. As you might already know, I assume most of you are also researchers, or almost all of you are. In research, it's possible to use generative AI tools to generate research articles, or part of research articles, obviously. Not just when I say generate research article, it sounds a bit odd. But what I'm talking about is some text in the research article, some parts. So we can make consideration regarding the what we were trying to do in a research article, or even in the context of assignments or in a student teaching consideration. Can we identify the objective and decide how the GenAI tool in usage can be defined? So we can't make a blanket decision for all, but it's possible to make such decision for different situations. Right, so just to give you an example, make sure, okay, so there are more challenges. I'll just skip that for now in the interest of time. So what in the research, what we can do is bring citing. So now all the citing styles, things like APA, IEEE, Chicago Manual of Styles, they have their own, and Michigan has their own. So we use one of those styles when you're citing papers. So now APA, for instance, is proposing to use this sort of a citing when you do take text generated by tools like ChatGPT into your papers. Right, so this is from the style perspective, but at the same time, I'm not sure whether I have, no, I don't. So at the same time, when publishers are talking about the same thing. So the publishers, almost all the publishers have listed down how to cite text generated by generative AI tools, and then allowing that text to be there in the article, as long as you don't let the tool, the generative AI tool, to become a co-author. So the tool is not a co-author, meaning the content in that article has to be owned, or the responsibility of the content is for the author or co-author. So GenAI tool is not one of them, but at the same time, the author when you say the author takes the responsibility, meaning the author has to come in the middle, as we call the human in the loop. So anything that is generated, human has to check and validate before before claiming or taking responsibility of the content, obviously, because that is the part of the responsibility. So the tool is not the co-author, but the tool will be just a tool, and it will be cited as this is generated by this tool. And some of the publishers have gone to the extent, I think even Elsevier has gone to an extent of asking the authors to attach appendix or appendices saying, okay, so this is how my prompt was to generate this text, and this is my prompt was to generate that text, and so on, as part of the submission of papers. So this is the research. Why I brought in research here is to show how it's possible to bring something similar into our plagiarism detection setup or plagiarism setup into the assignments in teaching as well. So there are other things that you can do in terms of plagiarism for assessments. One is to adapt other aspects like oral examinations and presentations, or process-focused evaluation. So instead of evaluating the outcome, evaluate the process, because these assessments and plagiarism are there. Instead of doing the last mile only, look at the whole process and evaluate it. It requires more time, and I hope we can use the time that we are saving as educators, teachers, from by using the technology. Again, similar tools, we are reducing our time or saving some time. Can that be used to interactive activities with the learners like this, or even during assessment? And one other thing is making this assessment unique, right? So individually different for different learners. That is what is anyway expected from a learning and also assessment perspective, from personalized learning. So in terms of assessment, there are some scheme or scales. This is one I'm using in one of the courses. The scale is AI assessment scale, AIAS. It's published in the paper. So it was like this is sometime back in 6 months ago. But now it also is published as a paper. So where we talk about different scales, you should be able to, with the learner, with the course plan, you should be able to pick one of them. On one end, you have no AI, so AI is not used at all, or you can't use AI. When you are on this end, obviously you have to again use a plagiarism detection or AI detection tool, which has its own challenges, like I mentioned. On the other end, you use full AI, so you can use, the learner can, or the assessee can use any AI tool, but don't have to cite anything. That's the other extreme, and no idea what's going on there. And there are things in between. For instance, this one, like level 4, the one I'm using is AI task completion, human evaluation. So make sure the AI is helping the learner, but at the same time, human takes responsibility. When I say human takes responsibility, not just responsibility, but also producing reports, producing like evidences to show this is how I got this answer from the AI. This is the prompt I made, and this is the answer I got. Yes, there's again challenges in terms of validating it, whether this is the prompt that was given to produce this output, but it gives that learning experience, and also the learner takes the responsibility of the content that is generated, which is what I think the next generation of skills that is one of the skills that is expected from the learners. So those are some aspects, I wanted to highlight in terms of challenges, and I also mentioned a few workaround and that things that are happening, particularly in research, which is taking a lead in aspects like this. Just to conclude, so here are some, so there are plenty of lists like this on tools that can be used for various aspects. Things like AI bots that can be used for text generation, conversation, learning, things like role play, and so on. And there are other tools for productivity, data-related analysis, and some of these tools we already are using. Image generation, video, for doing research-related activities, which is not part of this discussion specifically. There are tools that has limited access and curated responses for research activities. In fact, like these tools, some are, like not all of them, but some of them which are specific or specifically designed for certain aspects like research, they have curated answers that are coming after a validity check on its own. Things like consensus is a tool like that, which does some validity check before responding to us with so if you are doing a literature review, it can give us responses only with appropriate, like available real papers, not imaginary generated papers and so on. So those curations are also there in several other tools, and they are there in many the GPTs that you can generate using ChatGPT like platform. And there are also tools for generating better prompts that can improve our final responses. So these things, if you let the learners to be familiar with these tools, when I say learners, like I said, it's including the teachers, us, we also learning, and then make them aware of the challenges, and by highlighting opportunities, it should work there. Right, so integrating, so this is again, I just took it from a paper, integrating ChatGPT to higher education, or instead of ChatGPT, we also can say GenAI. So there are a lot of opportunities like I highlighted already. I just listed the same things. Challenges also there, again highlighted. With that, we should identify and prioritize a certain amount of things, starting from the policies. What is plagiarism, like for example, with the context of GenAI, like I said, and can we also do a policy in terms of what can be done? Obviously, it's not a blanket policy, like I said, because it depends on the situation, depends on the learning requirement. They are different, right? So even now, that is what we do. We don't do the same. We don't provide the same experience, or sorry, same tools and access to technology for different ways of learning and different situations. So we have to look at that and then provide the right opportunity, and therefore when we had to have policies on that. In fact, like I also haven't included in the slides, at Peradeniya we have prepared not a policy per se so far, but a guideline, and it's being discussed, debated at the Senate on how teachers, learners, and also administrators can use generative AI tools in the day-to-day work life. So there are a few ethical aspects, and obviously letting them use these tools, and therefore getting to know and going through this curve and coming to the right place so that they are the future ready and also industry ready and so on. So that are the priorities that we have. Barriers, yeah, so we have these barriers, which I hope will can also be taken care of with careful prioritization of what we want to do. I believe things like this session that we are having and the series of sessions that you all are organizing at SLIIT, I believe will be one of those such initiatives, and really appreciate the work that you all are doing. And just to finish, this is not from me, 𝗚𝗵𝗹𝗂𝗂𝗰𝗁𝗂, I assume those who are in computer science know. AI won't replace humans, but obviously humans using AI are going to replace humans who are not using AI. So initiatives like this and educating our learners on how the opportunities they have and the challenges they are facing and how they can overcome this is going to make the difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ragel, for this very interesting presentation that you have made. So let me open the floor for questions. You can unmute and ask. So Professor Ragel in his presentation talked about opportunities and challenges. And I think the main opportunities are from student point of view, personalized learning and learning opportunities are there. And from the lecturer point of view or teacher point of view, we can use these tools to help in our education, prepare materials and all that. And he also talked about various challenges. I think one is like plagiarism detection. There are a lot of problems with these tools that are currently available, especially if, for detecting AI-generated content. So before maybe someone asks a question, I have one small question, Professor Ragel. Like you mentioned this scale 1 to 5, where you can have different assessments, 5 being full AI. Without any citation or anything of that sort. Are you aware of some examples of where we could use full AI and allow the student to use anything in terms of a university module where we could apply that for an assignment?
No, I mean, yeah, so for now, I'm not seeing any examples that we are also not using because
more sense, I guess, right now.
Like I said, not even in education, even in research, that is where we are, right? So even big publishers and authorities, like say things like companies like 𝗘𝗱𝘂𝗂𝗂𝗧𝗏 or 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗍𝒂𝗰 and areas others, they are all talking about level 4. So in fact, like what happened was this, right? So in fact, we started with 5. If you look at the recent history, like the short history of GenAI tools, 𝗘𝗱𝘂𝗂𝗂𝗧𝗏 at the very beginning in 2022 December or somewhere, they allowed AI as a co-author, right? So so that is like 5, right? So where you say, okay, I mean, you say like AI is being used, but you don't say anything else, right? So you add AI as a co-author. Then the challenges is like, who is taking the responsibility of, so if there's a problem in the text, the authors can say, I don't know, there is a co-author who is an AI, go and ask the AI. Right, so that has happened, and like even now, I think those papers are still there in the archive, Elsevier archive, and with that things have evolved, and now we are the research domain. At least we are in 4, right? So we are not in 1, obviously. I mean, there are a lot of places we are in 1, but 4 is what generally used. But then there are even 3 is okay, right? So 3 is I see like there are a lot of academics who are concerned about 4. Can it, I mean, there are obviously, I mean, we haven't gone into all the discussion, but I'm having some discussion with faculties like social sciences, where they say generating itself is what they are learning. So okay, if not the content, but the generation. Right? So in a field like science, engineering, we are like, okay, so okay, let the tool generate, there's content. So there are more challenges there in those aspects as well, but we are having dialogues, and so in a situation like that, somewhere like 3, right? So it's the content is going to be their work, but you can use the tool to say, we are already allowing such things. I think Grammarly and others, we are already allowing even yeah. So and even so, by the way, so even publishers, they are allowing. So the publishers specifically highlighting the difference. I think tools like Grammarly, they don't have to, they are not considered here. So that is how the publishers are taking it. Like, so there is, I can't remember which publisher. One has explicitly said tools like Grammarly is not part of our discussion, this guideline. So this is beyond. So which means it's yeah. So AI assisted editing is not part of even the discussion there. So that is that is covered by the current or the past guidelines according to them.
Thank you, Professor Ragel. Dasmi, do you have a question? No. Let me open the floor. Anyone can please unmute and you can ask any question, or if you don't want to ask directly, you can post a question in the chat window.
Anuradha, you have asked, so Anuradha is a friend. Okay. So Anuradha, you have asked a couple of questions. Why don't you, maybe do you want me to read or you want to talk?
Anuradha, you can turn the camera. Yeah, yes.
I will ask it.
Okay,
so thank you very much, Roshan, for very insightful presentation and the discussion. So I have a couple of questions. One is on the resources that is required for computing to run these language models and AI, GenAI applications. And given the current economic condition of Sri Lanka and also similar countries in the region, and considering the long-term adoption of and the usage of AI, how should the institution, not necessarily education, but the other institution should they depend on the public AI and GenAI platforms that require large computing resources? Or should we start building our own private AI or GenAI platforms that require relatively small computing resources? That's my first question.
So, okay, that's okay. Maybe I'm not the right person to answer. You should answer that, right? Anyway, so in terms of the things like this this presentation I made, I'm assuming public infrastructure. Yes, with that comes, that is why I mentioned about challenges like the free part of it, which means it's using less amount of resources, and also from a like a financial aspect, it's not costing us. Obviously, it's costing somebody. Something, yeah. So on the same line, something that I didn't discuss in this presentation that we should do in a learner context is when to use. In fact, like I mentioned a bit about the objective, where to use it, but not to go and use it for everything, right? So similar to how we are using search engines, as you might know, like even if you don't know, like the educators know now, students don't use calculators for calculating; they do use search engines, right? So so we should educate the learners where to use them, where it is useful, not like for everything that they know even they don't have to use. So which means like we have to educate them on how expensive these tools are. That's one side. That we are, as an education side, we have to do, and we are doing. I think to some extent we should continue that. On the other side, from a research perspective, yes, we are building smaller language models. We had very small ones, but reasonably small one. On both, one for privacy concerns, whether we can keep the data here. Certain applications, we want to keep the data here. And then there are like, like augmented models where you can use little of the LLM and more of our own trained model on top of it or augmenting it. So those sort of projects are happening, and even at the national level, the infrastructure that we are thinking of setting up, and the discussion is to have sort of a hybrid augmented platforms like. I hope that gave some.
Yeah, thank you, Roshan. And the second question was on the, I think you alluded a bit on that with regard to the holistic approach of more open discussion at all levels of the education system in Sri Lanka, from primary to secondary to the higher education, and to make sure that the educators and the education policymakers all have the common understanding and the vision on this impact and the usage of AI and GenAI platforms. So has that already happened? Or I know that you have made a lot of initiatives in that regard, but how do you take on that?
I think a decent amount of work is happening in from various fronts because of the publicity, I would say, that is given globally on this aspect. For good reasons. I think reasonable effort is happening, like starting from a policy, the national strategy is now out for public feedback. That is not specifically for GenAI, but in AI in everything. So AI economic development, generative AI is a big part of it. So that at the very high level, but even the lower levels, even now with our involvement and also without, institute like National Institute of Education is training a lot of teachers with the minimum like half a day or a 1 day training on introducing these challenges, what are the possibilities, and how they can improve their productivity. Those are happening. So I see the numbers within the last few months. They are trained several hundreds. There are not several, hundred thousands of teachers, but so that, and also obviously learners. So it takes more time, but there's reasonable amount of initiative on the school education and universities. Obviously, again, is happening some discussions, things like that. But the SLIIT is doing there, and also we are doing here, and other universities, a lot of places I see decent amount of discussions happening, and even in terms of the visibility, GenAI visibility in the region, Sri Lanka is doing reasonably well in terms of numbers.
Thank you, Anuradha, for the questions. Are there any other questions anyone can ask Professor Ragel?
Professor 𝗚𝗵𝗹𝗶𝗀𝗀 here. Thank you for your wonderful presentation and enlightening us on the very important topic. With the tools that are being created, I mean, they're focusing on creativity. The constant question that I have, isn't the whole teaching as well as assessment criteria that we have, don't they have to shift upwards as a policy at all educational levels?
Completely agree. Yeah, in fact, like that is where even even UNESCO is pushing, right? So to relook at the whole spectrum of learning and bring them up, so that the tools can come in at the lower level or wherever they are appropriate, and then have the learners to take care of what they are supposed to be good at, right? Or we had to educate them to do it. So I think right now we are in a stage where we are trying to understand what these tools can do and what are the challenges there. And with that understanding, it's even easier. Obviously, some has to take the lead, and it's easier to redefine the whole pedagogy of learning. I mean, pedagogy itself, like the starting from even everything, right? So curriculum design, what has to go in, what are the learning outcomes that is expected from the learner, and so on. So that is like the long-term plan. And with this understanding that we have, I mean, obviously the understanding has to come from the awareness and the use of these tools, and then that would be the next step. And we had to go there. I mean, the sooner the better. Yeah, that's a very good question, and we have to do that. And some institution has to take a lead. Now that institute like SLIIT, the leaders are interested, I hope it can happen. So even other places, there are few who are really interested in taking this opportunity, and we think we can work together and be examples. But something that is, I mean, I'm noticing is particularly countries like Asian countries are actually doing better in terms of using these tools in education compared to even other places, like even places like US. Right? So I have seen some examples, some studies from there. The adaptation there is not as good as some Asian countries, particularly countries like obviously Singapore is leading, but even China and Malaysia and others, Thailand, they are doing better. So we have examples closer.
Thanks, Professor Ragel. Any other questions anyone wants to ask? So I totally agree with what you were saying. So I think even Hong Kong is doing really well. The universities over there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Hong Kong is another leader, like they're doing education particularly.
Professor Anuradha, do you want to ask a question?
Yes. I want to ask one question, Professor Ragel. Thank you for your presentation and innovative session. What I want to know here is there any ethical consideration we have to follow-up when it is educators or as a developer when you are implementing a Gen AI in an educational context. Still, I think we need to discuss this one, but I think it's better to. I would like to get your opinion regarding this matter.
Ethical consideration, if you be more specific.
Yeah, normally now most of the time, most of the I have seen some research papers, even most of the contents written by the AI tools, some specific documentation even it's comes with the AI tools. Likewise, in future now still I think policymakers has need to make some decision based on that, but still to discuss I think that matter.
Yeah, there's more to discuss. You are right, brother. And the point is, that is where, like I said, like research, there are some sort of decisions made in terms of publication, how to use it, how to cite it, and so on. In education, there are these frameworks, like the example I took on the assessment, AI with assessment considering AI. In fact, like the if you go and look at the one I mentioned, that paper has a lot more detail. I just put one slide from it. I mean one. Yeah, so this is all what I shared, but this website and the paper has a decent amount of content in on things like if you are a specific, let's say, business or computer science, when you're giving an assignment, what are the considerations you have to have, how to instruct the students on what to do, what not to do, how to evaluate it even, so the different stages. In fact, like for one of our, it's like our final year research and bachelor's research project, we allowed them to at level 4, and we gave them the guideline and we trained them. Obviously started by things like a session like this, not education, but on research. What are the challenges, what are the opportunities they have, what are the tools available, how they can use them, which are the free tools or all of them can use. So the different aspects, and also train them on how to ask the right questions and not right prompts and not, obviously. So those things we did, and also then during evaluations, we also have updated our evaluation rubrics where we included, okay, so now that you are using the tools at level 4, or you are doing it at level 4, you have to submit these documents. So you have to submit how you got this response from the tool, what are the prompts you did, and what are the refinements you did to the prompt. So we gave sort of a guideline, step-by-step process, and the things like as you might know, finally a project has multiple evaluation points, different Viva presentations, and then reports and so on. So they are if you like look at this, they are free to use the tool as task completion tool, and then they have to show us how they use it, and also we went to an extent of asking them what they learned from using the tool and reflect on the tool's response. Obviously, they are not, while they are doing this, they are not just using the tool and giving, like copy-pasting the response, but they are taking the responsibility and editing it, validating. How do you check whether this response is right? How do you check if there is some fact or information that is correct? So that experience is required, we believe, in research, not only in research, in writing as well. So we sent our learners through that process, and they are still not done. It's like a 2-semester long project. 1.5 semester is done, and then we are here. So that total process we did. So I completely agree that we should have the clear guidelines. That is one, and I just took one example where it's okay to use it, but then there can be situations where no, we don't want the tool to be used, and we want the learners to be evaluated on a certain outcome, learning outcome, and not just the product outcome, like the learning outcome. And if you want to evaluate it in a certain way, we can keep that at level 1 and do it clearly. And obviously, what I meant when I said these plagiarism tools are not very helpful, they are biased. I mean, plagiarism detection tools are biased. That's what I was showing you with these graphs. They have their also things like this, right? So If you are coming from a certain like non-native author, then the tools are going to be not very useful. And so that's what this like particularly this graph shows. And so the situations like this, if you are using C like very first level in the assessment scale, that is no AI, then make sure they don't use AI and assess them in a way like that, right? So and have the learning outcome assessed in that way. But at the same time, what I would also suggest, like we discussed a little earlier, reconsider whether such a learning outcome is expected in the long run, in the future. If it is expected, yes, we'll still keep it. If it is not, when I say reconsider, we had to have a dialogue and reconsider whether this learning outcome is expected. Yes, keep it. If not, change it. Change the learning outcome itself or the program outcome of a degree program itself. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ragel. Just one quick question. I think since both of us are coming from a computing background, we see the industry adapting these technologies much more rapidly. So the question is like, these tools are changing, and just a few days ago, OpenAI had a big announcement and they had some massive improvements. Gemini is also having a lot of improvements. The industry seems to be catching up more quicker in adapting these tools. And the question is, are academics lagging behind the industry in terms of adapting and getting used to use these tools? And if that is the case, how do we kind of bridge the gap? And we have to, I think, move with the industry, because that's where our graduates are going.
Yeah, we are lagging behind our learners, right?
Yes.
Not just the industry.
The students are actually more conversant with these tools than us, I guess.
Students, our learners are more conversant, usually new technologies. It's true. The only concern I have is the learners are not very clear on all the aspects, particularly the limitations and the challenge, those things. So that is where the educators, we understand education better, right? Compared to learners anyway. That is why we are there. So we should bring our experience, and therefore, yeah, we have to dive in and know all this so that we can help our learners better. There's no way of stopping the learners doing it. Stopping has multiple effects. One is, yeah, they are not going to be, like they're going to use it anyway, find ways to use it. And the other one is they are not going to be industry ready or future ready, right? So therefore, stopping is not a way forward. So we have to find the ways to use it, let them use it, but we being there, right? So we be there, we understand what's going on and help them. That is what I think we should. That's like a really good final message.